The first time I laid eyes on pictures of Baalbek in Lebanon, I was absolutely blown away. The scale of the stones, the enigmatic precision, and the mystery of its origins felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. My mind immediately went to a phrase that originally led me to read the Bible in the first place.
There were giants upon the earth in those days.
Giants? In the Bible? I needed to know more. To my dismay, there wasn't too much written about them. The story seemed incomplete. But what it did say was intriguing.
There were giants upon the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men and bore children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4.
The sons of God found human women captivating and desired to be with them. Their unions resulted in the birth of the Nephilim, or giants, who turned into violent beings, wreaking havoc on the earth and causing destruction. Witnessing this, God became deeply displeased and chose to send a flood to cleanse the earth of their corruption, leading to the story of Noah and the ark. In the book of Numbers, God instructs Moses to send leaders from each tribe of Israel to scout the land of Canaan, the promised land meant for the Israelites. These men were tasked with evaluating the land's fertility, its people's strength, and the city's defenses. After 40 days, they returned with reports of Canaan's abundance, bringing back fruit to show its richness. However, they also described its inhabitants as formidable, particularly mentioning the descendants of Anak, known for their great stature. While Caleb encouraged immediate action to take the land, they were fearful, claiming the inhabitants were too powerful.
And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. Numbers 13:33.
The name Anakim immediately caught my attention because it resonates with ancient Mesopotamian mythology, where Sumer is regarded as the first civilization. Their chief deity is An, or Anu, meaning heaven or heavenly father, while his consort, Ki, represents Earth, or the goddess of Earth. Together, their descendants are called the Anunnaki, which translates to descendants of An and Ki, or descendants of heaven and earth. Some interpret it as those who descended from heaven to earth. The Anunnaki were believed to hold the power to determine the fate of humanity, shaping civilizations and destinies with their divine authority. This connection intrigued me even further when I came across the biblical Anakim, described as giants of great stature, towering over those who encountered them. These mighty beings weren't just legends. They were said to inhabit fortified cities, their immense size and strength posing an insurmountable challenge to all who opposed them. Could there be a deeper connection between these legendary giants and the Anunnaki? Were the Anakim remnants of an advanced lineage, perhaps one tied to the divine beings who fell from the heavens? The Bible mentions them only a few more times, but each reference paints a vivid picture of their power and might.
Where can we go? Our brothers have made our hearts melt, saying, the people are larger and taller than we are. The cities are large, with walls up to the heavens. We even saw the descendants of the Anakim there. Deuteronomy 1:28. The people are strong and tall, the descendants of the Anakim. You know about them, and you have heard it said, who can stand up to the sons of Anak? Deuteronomy 9:2.
The book of Joshua provides detailed insight into the conquest of the Anakim. Joshua led a decisive campaign, driving them out of the hill country of Hebron, Debir, and Anab, and laying waste to their fortified cities. Later, Caleb, known for his unwavering faith in God's promise, was granted Hebron as his inheritance. With steadfast determination, he continued the mission, driving out the remaining Anakites, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. This marked the fulfillment of God's promise to deliver the land of Canaan to the Israelites, triumphing over even the most formidable of adversaries. After these events, there was no further mention of the Anakim. The story ended abruptly, leaving me with more questions than answers. It felt like watching 2 thrilling seasons of a show only to have it abruptly canceled. What happened next? Where was the rest of the story? My curiosity led me to discover that there are, in fact, hundreds, possibly thousands of ancient texts that were excluded from the mainstream Bible. They are often referred to as apocryphal or pseudepigraphal writings. Wow, I had no idea such a treasure trove of knowledge existed. I uncovered a vast collection of these ancient texts, many of which were likely excluded because they were deemed too controversial. These writings offer fascinating insights, alternative perspectives, and stories that expand on or diverge from the biblical narratives we know today. To my delight, one such text I discovered, the Book of Enoch, offered a more complete account of these biblical giants. There was even an entire chapter called the Book of Giants. To my surprise, I learned that while Christian biblical scholars often consider the Book of Enoch heretical and excluded it from the mainstream Bible, Ethiopia regards it as canonical, and it remains a part of their Bible to this day. I immediately knew I had to get my hands on a copy. So, who was Enoch? In the mainstream Bible, he is mentioned only 3 times. We know he lived 365 years, was the son of Jared, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather of Noah. Then, in Genesis 5:24, it cryptically states,
"And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him."
Wait, what? Took him? Took him where? And that was all it had to say about Enoch, a figure so briefly mentioned yet clearly so significant. It left me with many more questions. When I finally got my hands on a copy of the Book of Enoch, I was completely captivated. Told from his own perspective, the text recounts his extraordinary journey beyond the earthly realm. Guided by various archangels, he is taken on a celestial tour above the earth, where divine secrets are revealed to him. He is shown the dramatic story of the Watchers, heavenly beings also called the Grigori, or sons of God, who were once holy but fell from grace. These Watchers rebelled against divine law by crossing the sacred boundaries of creation. Overcome by their desire for the daughters of men, they descended to earth, fathering the Nephilim, giants whose power and influence wreaked havoc on the world. Their violence and corruption spread chaos, ultimately leading to God's judgment. The Book of Enoch expands on this narrative in vivid detail. It reveals the divine plan to cleanse the earth of this corruption. Enoch learns of a great flood that would wipe out the Nephilim and reset humanity. This cataclysmic event would destroy the Watcher's legacy and spare only the righteous. As I delved deeper, I was struck by the parallels between the Book of Enoch and the ancient Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki found on cuneiform clay tablets. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim recounts the god's decision to send a flood to destroy humanity, but the god Enki warns him and instructs him to build a great boat to save himself, his family, and animals. Utnapishtim survives the flood and releases a dove, a swallow, and a raven to check if the waters have receded, a detail that closely mirrors the biblical story of Noah. The similarities were striking, but what fascinated me the most was discovering that the Sumerian flood myth predates the mainstream Bible by at least 1,000 years. I couldn't help but wonder, could these ancient Sumerian myths be the source of the biblical narrative? The Book of Enoch felt like a missing piece of the puzzle, offering humanity a glimpse into the mysteries hidden from mainstream biblical texts, bridging ancient traditions by answering questions left unaddressed, while echoing the ancient Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki. I was in awe. How could such a profound account be excluded from mainstream teachings? And why do these stories, whether from the Bible, the Book of Enoch, or the Sumerian tablets, share such undeniable parallels? I had to keep digging. While I was reading the Book of Enoch, I felt compelled to visualize the places it described, so I mapped them all out and pinned them on Google Earth. This marked the beginning of a 2-decade-long quest to research and uncover everything I could about these ancient civilizations and the mythology intertwined with them. One name that stood out was Mount Hermon, identified in the Book of Enoch as the place where the 200 angels fell. Curious, I located it on the map, and to my astonishment, I discovered that Baalbek, with its massive and mysterious ruins, is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Mount Hermon. The realization completely blew my mind, because once you lay eyes on Baalbek, it's impossible not to wonder, how could humans have built such an extraordinary structure, especially when you compare the size of the people to the massive stone blocks? And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. The temple's walls are constructed with around 24 monoliths, each weighing over 300 tons. Above them, on the west wall, sit the trilithon, or the three stones, which are about 20 feet off the ground. These immense stones each weigh over 800 tons, measuring approximately 62 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet thick, making them the largest megalithic stones found at any archaeological site in the world today. Even more astonishing are 3 stones unearthed in a nearby quarry. The stone of the pregnant woman, estimated to weigh 1,000 tons. The stone of the south, even larger, at 1,242 tons. The forgotten stone, the largest of them all, weighing an estimated 1,650 tons. These are the largest known stones ever quarried in human history, posing one of the greatest mysteries of ancient engineering. How they were cut, moved, and placed with such precision remains an enigma that continues to baffle experts today. When I first started researching mythology and ancient history, the most confusing aspect for me was learning and remembering the names. I quickly noticed that many myths and stories shared strikingly similar themes, even across continents, but the names of the characters and gods were often different. And to make matters worse, many of them had multiple names. I've always been someone who notices patterns, and as I dove into the study of Sumerian cuneiform texts and the Anunnaki, I began to observe how their words were often broken into components. Many names seem to share either the same beginning or the same ending. For example, Enlil. En equals Lord, Lil equals Sky, Lord of the Sky. Enki. En equals Lord, Ki equals Earth, Lord of the Earth. This connection struck me when I remembered that Ki, meaning Earth, was the wife of Anu, as I mentioned earlier. That's when it hit me. These weren't names at all. They were titles. This realization inadvertently introduced me to the study of etymology, the origin of words and their meanings, which became a game changer for my research. I started to see how mistranslations, especially of titles being interpreted as names, might have caused much of the confusion we face today. Could this have led scholars to unknowingly create a multitude of separate gods that might actually be the same figures under different titles? The confusion reminded me of a passage in the Bible about the Tower of Babel. After the Great Flood, humanity began to grow and spread across the land. During this time, the entire world shared one language and spoke with a common tongue. A group of people settled in the plains of Shinar, located in what is now modern-day Mesopotamia. Inspired by their unity, they resolved to construct a grand city and an immense tower that would reach the heavens. Their ambition was to create a lasting legacy and maintain their unity, avoiding dispersion across the earth. God observed their actions and became concerned, saying,
If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Genesis 11:6.
To disrupt their plans, God confused their language so they could no longer understand each other.
That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. Genesis 11:9.
This caused them to abandon the project and scatter across the earth. The city and tower were named Babel, from the Hebrew word balal, meaning to confuse, to mark the event where God confused their language. The city of Babel is now called Babylon, located in modern-day Iraq. In Akkadian, the language of ancient Babylon, the word Babalu means gate of God. So, while in Hebrew, Balal emphasizes confusion, the Babylonian interpretation of the name emphasizes its divine connection, creating a fascinating duality in how the story is understood across cultures. The exact age of Baalbek remains a mystery, but it is widely speculated that the site has been built upon by at least 3 different civilizations over the centuries, each one leaving its unique mark, contributing to the layered history of this awe-inspiring location. Archaeological evidence suggests that Baalbek was initially a place of worship for the Canaanite or Phoenician god Baal, a title meaning Lord. Just like En in Sumerian. The name Baalbek likely derives from Baal, meaning Lord, and Bek, meaning valley, translating to Lord of the Valley. So, did you happen to notice how Balal and Baal sound eerily similar? Coincidence? Or confusion? The striking similarity between the names Balal and Baal could hint at the shared cultural and religious threads running through the ancient Near East. Or perhaps it's no coincidence at all. Maybe the story of Babel was crafted to deliberately contrast the scattering and confusion of humanity with the unified yet idolatrous worship of figures like Baal. This idea adds a fascinating layer to the biblical narrative, drawing a purposeful line between humanity's defiance of God at Babel and their later devotion to rival deities such as Baal. Baalbek is an intriguing site shaped by countless civilizations, each leaving their unique mark on its history. But what I found so fascinating is what ties them all together. The recurring theme of the storm god, a powerful figure I found in so many ancient cultures, and not always the good guy. We begin with the Canaanites. In 14th century BCE Ugaritic texts, Baal-Hadad was a storm and fertility god, a fierce warrior battling the forces of chaos like Yam, the sea, and Mot, death. His story reflects control over both destruction and life. Going further back to the Sumerians, we find that they worshipped Ishkur, also a storm god, who over time merged with the Akkadian god named Adad, who was also linked to Enlil, who, if you remember, was one of the Anunnaki and their chief sky god. Confused yet? Just wait. I was surprised to learn that in early Israelite religion, Yahweh, the God of the Hebrew Bible, also shared many traits with these storm deities. He commanded thunder, lightning, and rain, even riding on clouds to demonstrate his power. He was known as one of the Elohim, a word seemingly mistranslated to singular form in the mainstream Bible. But Elohim is actually a plural noun in Hebrew, derived from the root word El, meaning deity or mighty one. The suffix im denotes plurality. Funny how over time, Yahweh's role shifted and transformed into the singular God of monotheistic Judaism, huh? Just like the word Elohim did. Well, these stormy origins certainly left their mark. Between the death of Alexander the Great and the rise of the Roman Empire, Baalbek came to be known as Heliopolis, meaning Sun City in Greek. What's fascinating is that Egypt's Giza, home to the Great Pyramid, was also called Heliopolis, drawing a mysterious connection between these two ancient and monumental sites. Adding even more layers is Egypt's connection to the cedar forest of Lebanon, referred to as the Cedars of God in the Bible. Wood from this legendary forest was discovered in boats excavated in Egypt, offering tangible evidence of resource exchange and shared knowledge between these great civilizations in the ancient world. And wouldn't you know it, Egypt also had a storm god. His name was Set, the rival brother of Osiris and Isis. The Greeks equated Baal with their own storm god, Zeus, renowned for his raging thunderbolts. Zeus is probably the most well-known storm deity in modern culture and needs little introduction. As the king of the Greek gods, known as the Olympians, he ruled over the heavens and commanded immense power. The Olympians were the grandchildren of Uranus, meaning sky, and Gaia, meaning earth. They were the primordial deities who gave rise to the Titans, the giants of Greek mythology. Did you happen to notice how once again their divine lineage mirrors that of the Sumerian pairing of An and Ki? Lastly, during the Roman era, Baalbek became home to the Grand Temple of Jupiter, continuing the storm god legacy in a monumental form. But what if I told you Baalbek holds much deeper secrets, and not all of them belong to gods? During my research on Baalbek, I was amazed to discover that a goddess figure named Asherah was once venerated here. Asherah, a powerful deity symbolizing fertility, wisdom, and life, held a prominent place in ancient traditions. Over time, however, her role was redefined. She was vilified and cast as a forbidden figure, a stark contrast to her earlier reverence as a nurturing and divine protector. What astonished me even more were inscriptions discovered at a remote archaeological site in the Sinai Peninsula, dating back to the 8th century BCE. These inscriptions reference Yahweh and his Asherah, suggesting a time when Asherah may have been regarded as a consort or divine counterpart to Yahweh. This blending of traditions paints an intriguing picture of religious evolution, one that later monotheistic narratives sought to erase. Crazy, isn't it? The stories that suddenly come to life when you approach with an open mind, peeling back the layers of time to reveal hidden truths. The goddess Asherah was symbolized by a tree, often interpreted as representing life, fertility, and nourishment, and by the lion, a symbol of strength, protection, and divine authority. Together, these elements emphasize her dual role as a nurturing mother figure and a fierce protector. Some even suggest that Asherah's tree was none other than the tree of life, further cementing her association with creation, wisdom, and the interconnectedness of all things. Her influence can still be seen in the intricate lion carvings across Baalbek's masonry, serving as a testament to her enduring legacy in ancient cultures. Speaking of lions, perhaps Egypt has some secrets it could divulge about this mysterious goddess. But that's a topic for another video. I can't help but wonder if these carvings echo a forgotten story, a tale of a goddess once celebrated, then suppressed, yet still lingering through the sands of time, her presence subtly etched into history. Could her erasure have been deliberate? With so many coincidences and parallels between these ancient civilizations, it's hard not to wonder, were the fragments we see today carefully curated or even manipulated over the centuries? It's as if remnants of a shared understanding were scattered, much like the story of Babel itself, creating fragmented and overlapping myths across cultures. Isn't it compelling to imagine the clarity we might gain if we could piece them all back together? Well, that is my intention. Baalbek stands as a silent witness to a forgotten era, one filled with giants, watchers, and civilizations wielding technology far beyond what we can explain. What if it was all true? Could it be that the builders of Baalbek weren't primitive at all, but rather part of an advanced, pre-flood civilization, a group of divine beings who fell from the heavens? This enigmatic group is hinted at across countless ancient texts, each weaving its own version of the same mysterious story. Which raises an even bigger question. Has our history been manipulated? Have key pieces of this puzzle been suppressed, altered, or deliberately erased? To align with a narrative purposefully crafted to serve the interests of those in power? Or perhaps it was driven by fear. History often feels like a fragmented puzzle, with pieces scattered across time, languages, and cultures. Yet the patterns persist, echoes of a shared knowledge that refuse to be silenced. From the Watchers of Enoch to the Nephilim of Genesis and the Anunnaki of Sumerian texts, there's an undeniable thread connecting the ancient past to our present. Perhaps the real question isn't whether these stories are true, but whether we are ready to uncover the truths they contain and confront the possibility that much of what we think we know has been carefully shaped. In the end, wisdom requires humility, the willingness to admit we don't have all the answers, and the courage to seek them anyway. What if the truths we seek have been here all along, waiting for us to open our eyes? I'll leave you with these two profound quotes to reflect on.
This is why I speak to them in parables. Because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear. Nor do they understand. Matthew 13:13. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. Hermes Trismegistus.
So, the question now remains. Are you ready to listen?